Hi, I'm Nat. Welcome to my channel Inks and Tomes, and today I will be doing my October reading wrap-up and what I read during my favorite blustery month of the year. To start, I finished 4 books during October, and I am quite proud of that considering one of them was a nice big thick chunky one and I liked spending a lot of time on it because I really enjoyed it, even though there was a dip in the middle. And for those of you who might have guessed, it is the book that was my carry-on from last month. I finished The Poppy War by r.f.kuang, if I'm not mispronouncing her name. If I am, please excuse me. I've had to return my copy back to the library, so here you go, the picture-in-picture. It is book 1 of a trilogy, of an ongoing trilogy. The 3rd book is coming out in November, if I'm not mistaken, so this month. And it is adult fantasy. To start, I enjoyed this book. I really enjoy the first bit, the premise where we see Runin craving a better life, a life that doesn't involve being married off to some merchant in order to better the lives of her foster family, and making that decision, reaching that, and getting into the best school in the country in Sinigard. By the way, I'm remembering all of these names from memory, so if I don't remember something properly, then feel free to call me out, but my brain is doing its best. I really enjoyed the character development that went with her going to Sinigard. Some of it was very graphic, and some of the choices that she made were very, very difficult. Altan's introduction was by far one of the best introductions of characters that I remember in recent times, but also because it was so anime-esque. I think that's another thing why I really enjoyed this book in general. It had a very, very, very strong anime vibe. Now, the author herself said she incorporated some of the elements and inspirations from things like Avatar: The Last Airbender, which itself was based on anime. If you enjoyed The Poppy War, I would 100% recommend going and watching stuff like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood for a start, and then expanding into more shonen anime. Then we have this big revelation and history dump in the middle of the book, after which we see Runin go on and begin tackling the unfairness and war and poverty of the world surrounding Sinigard. Another thing that I appreciate about this book is that it did not shy away from graphic scenes, which I think as an adult you really miss in YA fiction. You understand that these people exist, but they miss some human elements. The things that I did not like about this book are some very contemporary slang, American slang used in the book, namely kiddo, which is very, very American and very not time period appropriate, and I would think not world appropriate. So I would have appreciated if she'd invented a word for that, because that really took me out of the book. When I read it, I was like, whoa, where am I? What's happening? Why is this happening? And the second thing is, I really think that there could have been a bit less reliance on actual historical events, if that makes sense. I know a lot of people like the fact that there was a lot of true to life description of various events, which I do not want to mention, and people who have read obviously know what they are. But I think that a step back could have been taken in those aspects. So I'm really excited to read The Dragon Republic and see what she's done there, because again, this was her debut novel, and as somebody who doesn't have a debut novel, I can't really criticize her for that, and see how she improved. The next 2 books that I read were A Court of Thorns and Roses and A Court of Mist and Fury. Now, the first one I read as a library book, which I had to return, and the second one I read on the Books app. In summary, the ACOTAR series by Sarah J. Maas is about Feyre, who is a human being living on the south side of an invisible wall that splits the world between the fairy realms and the human realms, and one evening as she's hunting for her family to try and get them through the winter, she unwittingly kills one of the High Fae. As consequence of her actions, she's then taken by Tamlin, one of the living High Fae, over the wall into his spring court, and from then on, instead of being killed, she slowly begins growing fond and familiar with the world of the High Fae. And I have a lot of thoughts about this. I decided to read it when I heard booktube go on an absolute rampage about it. I had a couple of videos pop up recommending it to me, and all I can say is, y'all like some softcore porn, don't you? That's essentially it. I think the book itself is actually really good. I think the plot The fact that we get characters and character perceptions absolutely shifting from book 1 to book 2, really engaging and appealing. I found that, really, really good. Out of the 2 books so far, I think I preferred the latter. I preferred Rysand as a character more to Tamlin, and I think that Feyre as a character also grew a lot more. I think the cleverness of book 2 as well, the little tasks that she had to do, were really well thought out, but I may be one of the few people really didn't like any of the sex. That really did not add anything to the plot. There were a couple of scenes where, you know, the way that the relationship between the characters is changing, etc. Good, that's fair enough. But then there were just some which were like, alright, I guess, I mean, if I signed up for it, then that's fine, but I didn't, so that struck me a bit odd. I do agree with some of the criticisms with Mass's writing, which is she makes OP characters. She makes very overpowered characters, and that might really interrupt the enjoyment of the book, and I honestly think that I'm going to enjoy the 3rd book of the installment a lot less, if only because the word mate at the end of the 2nd book already became very prominent, and I don't understand how this is going to be translated into book 3, but yike. Overall, I enjoyed the series. I think it deserves some of the hype that it's getting on book 2, but I can 100% see a lot of the drawbacks. I'm not sure how I'm going to feel about book 3, so I will see how that goes. I already have it downloaded on my iPad, and I will get to it eventually. I'm honestly just not looking forward to hearing mate for apparently a lot of times. And for the 4th book, I finished reading Circe by Madeline Miller, which is about the Greek goddess Circe and is a retelling of Greek mythology from her point of view. Now, I've read The Song of Achilles a couple years ago and I really enjoyed it. Circe was a slow grow for me. I honestly started off being very lukewarm on it. This book starts off really slow, in my opinion, and one way to enjoy it is to drop your preconceived notions of how quickly a story should be told and enjoy the writing and the atmosphere for what it is. I think this is one of those books where the atmosphere is, if you slow down to appreciate it, you begin to enjoy it a lot more, because it's not really an events-driven book. Because it's based about Circe, a lot of her life is spent on the island where she was banished, and her thoughts and development as a persona. I think what this book also did really well was get me interested even more in reading the Iliad and the Odyssey, and I think for a based off book, that is one of the goals that the book should have. It should try and engage you and get you interested in the core material that it was based on. This reminded me of what I would think a summer evening on the Mediterranean would be. Very fragrant, calm, slightly mysterious. This book had it all. That is it for what I read in October. And now for my carry-ons. The first one is not surprising because I've already mentioned it 2 months prior, but I'm still in the middle of Freakonomics and I'm slowly hating it more and more by every single chapter. It really does seem like it's the guy's academic papers being retold for the general public. It's a bit self-indulgent, I would say, because the papers aren't being shown. A lot of the data seems a bit far-fetched. You don't really see evidence how he got to something without the actual figures in front of you. But I'm almost done. I think I'm 1 or 2 chapters off the end, so I will persevere and get through it. And the second book that I started reading at the beginning of the month is A Darker Shade of Magic. This was my book date for October. Opened it up, didn't know what it was. Happy I got it because I'm really liking the premise, which is the existence of 4 different Londons and people who are able to traverse the walls between them to travel between these 4 Londons. So far I'm enjoying the book. I think this is also another booktube favorite. However, it isn't an instant hit with me. One of the characters is really annoying me at the moment, and I'm not sure why, because there's nothing about them that should be doing that to me. I think it might be, personally, this book so far, in my opinion, is it needs to be more fleshed out. I think there needs to be a bit more world building for me to buy into it, because at the moment all you get is the bare bones of backstory and character interactions which are not built upon. It's kind of like an introductory and the benchmark interaction between these characters, and then we just leave them. And then we go on with more new story, with more new plot, and it feels like that kind of impedes the character building and the world building that this book could be doing. For an adult fantasy, I feel this size is very much reminiscent of her YA novels, or as YA novels in general. I'm going to see where it goes. I think I'm about halfway in, like a bit, 1/3 of the way in, and I'm hoping that I like it enough that I pick up book 2 and 3. My favorite character, honestly, is Holland, even though he's doing some bad stuff, but that's my hot take. I'm probably going to be proven wrong at the end of the book, but there we go. I should probably also mention that this is the book that the book club is currently reading at the moment, so if you want to discuss this book just in general, link is in the description. You can always click on it and join us and have a good old time. That is the end of my video. I know that I kind of went a bit in depth about Poppy War, but I genuinely enjoyed this book. So my question to you is, have you read any of these books, and are you planning to read any of these books? What did you think about them? What did you not think about them? Am I completely off the mark with some of my comments? Or please convince me that they deserve a higher or lower rating, because I do enjoy reading reviews after I finish books just to temper my ratings, actually. That's something I really like doing. People bring up good points about the text, which when I read them does change my rating a bit. So I'm open for discussion. But with that, I'm going to sign off and catch you in the next one. Stay safe, stay cozy, and bye-bye.